Obviously, we're not going to see the 21-man squad for a couple of days. What's the latest on Paul McShane's injury?
He's responded really well to treatment, so I'm hoping that in a couple of days treatment, intensive treatment while we're away, he'll be available to play in the 17 that takes field against Catalans.
What's the specific of the injury?
He just picked a bit of a dead leg above the knee. Unfortunately, half time came at the wrong time for us in terms of his injury. Had to sit down, tried to keep it moving, but stiffened up to the point where he was really struggling with his mobility and being able to get around the field. So made the decision, to take him off with a view to, the Catalan trip and obviously the Wakefield trip. So he was disappointed. He found a little bit of traction in the game, was causing them some problems, running from dummy half, and on the back of what he did really, really well for us against Leeds, it felt as though he was just, starting to find his groove a little bit. And then unfortunately for him, obviously picked up a knock, which prevented him being able to finish the game.
How likely are Mahe, Fonua and George Lawler to be involved after missing out last week?
Mahe, Fonua, good chance. Passed all his return to play protocols from that HIA. So he's had some reps in the team as a centre. So, that's been good for him, just to get some combinations going and get back out on the training field. George Lawler's, it's just a pain threshold for him for George. The sternum injury, which I think every player in rugby league has had over the course of their career. Very, very sore, very, very painful. Some people are able to tolerate that pain a little bit more. George has, had a really, nasty whack on there. It's still causing him some discomfort. So it's just a case of him trying to manage it as best as he can. And we need to manage it as best as we can too.
You'll obviously have to do without Adam Milner. Any complaints about the suspensions at all from your point of view?
The attacking the ball player when it's released. All teams try and put pressure on ball player because if you give them time, they can obviously unpick you. Matt Duffy obviously, is a real run threat. I think he carried the ball into line and obviously Ads did hit him. We were penalised for it. The resulting penalty, they scored off the back of it. So, sometimes you feel as though that's punishment enough. But it's just, the decision makers have obviously gone down the route of, we need to protect the ball players, which I agree with. And obviously Adams, suffered the consequence, not only once but twice in the same game.
So given the issues you've just spoken about and given the loss last week, is it a difficult team to pick at the moment?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a difficult team. Some bulls bodies from, the physical toll of playing against a very, very physical team in Warrington. The confidence bit down and, disappointed after, performing poorly at home after we'd, done well the week prior against Leeds. So we're looking for a response against Catalans. Who equally will be looking for a response after they suffered their first defeat against Leeds. So, two teams hoping to bounce back.
Was it a difficult game to review with the group?
Yes, it was. It was a difficult game to review. We spoke all week about, trying to match the physicality, making sure that technically, we was good in our contact area and making sure that we tried to take away Paul Vaughan's leg speed, Sam Cassiono's leg speed, and identifying it and actually doing it are two completely different things. And sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and pay credit to the opposition. They've got some ruck tempo through the middle of the field. With those power runners, we didn't quite match up physically to Warrington on the weekend. When we did gain a little bit of traction through the middle of the field by getting a little bit tighter and compressing our defensive line, they recognised that there was space on the edge and they exploited that space on the edge. That's why the likes of George Williams and Matt Duffy and Matty Ashton are having a really, really good season so far. So we've learnt some lessons. We need to be better. Biggest area that we have to improve is we have to complete more. We've got to try and get our completion rates up to around that 80% mark and just give yourself an opportunity to be in the contest. And at the minute, we just aren't doing that on a consistent basis. So that's been a real focus for us this week.
And you will have a lot of the answers to the questions that group needs at the moment. But Andy, is there a point also where you're scratching your head when you're looking around and seeing that group, that quality group of players, but at the same time realizing they're a lot better than they should be?
Yeah, definitely. Some individuals are making some uncharacteristic errors, and some individuals are making some uncharacteristic decisions. We've identified those areas that need to improve, but it's very, very difficult because you can't simulate pressure in training. You can speak about it. I think the important thing is getting the players to understand that the game is all about building pressure and sustaining pressure, but then also being able to deal with when pressure is applied to you. And, we're not building enough pressure and we're not sustaining enough pressure on the opponents at the moment. And then we're showing some real, softness and lack of resilience when teams put pressure on us. So, we've got to, do better in those situations. And we've identified it, we've spoken about it, we've practiced for it. The proof is always in the pudding, and that's when it comes to the 80 minutes in performance, we've got to deliver on performance.
And like you say, Catalan will be stinging after that defeat by Leeds. Do you have to sort of expect a bit of a backlash and show some resilience that you've not really shown this weekend?
Definitely. I think that's, something that we haven't shown. And it's in these periods where you learn about resilience. It's when you're facing adversity and when your back's to the wall, you see what character we've got and what character the players have got. And at the moment, some of the questions with regards to the character aren't being answered in the right way. So the players are aware of that. They need to respond. Got the utmost respect for obviously Steve McNamara. Very, very good coach, and done a great job at Catalan, and has been building something quite special there. The recruitment's excellent, and they're a very, very well balanced team, and they're a good side. So they'll be looking for a response, and it's a tough place to go over to the south of France. So looking forward to the challenge, and we're expecting a better performance than we got on Friday.
Some teams go in and go in on the day and come back out. Some teams go before. What sort of way are you doing it this time?
Yeah, we're going in on the Thursday, so we've got a flight on the Thursday morning. We'll get to the hotel probably around lunchtime. We'll be able to do obviously an active recovery in the pool and get them moving again after the flight and a little bit of travel. Probably have an afternoon walk, team activity, some lunch and an evening meal, etc. And then Friday will be a team run out there. Play the game on Saturday and then back into Castleford Sunday morning round about lunchtime.
And this question will always be asked up until the point that a permanent appointment is made. Have you had any further chats, Andy, with the senior management there?
No, they've kept the distance from me after Friday night's game, so that one very. It won't. They've kept the distance when I'm walking, trying to make eye contact. They're turning back of me and walking into the office. So, that doesn't bode very well. But, no, I haven't had any chats with them with regard to the position. I've just got to, keep working hard, try and pull the group together, identify areas that we need to improve and, try and get more out of the group, like you say. We've been inconsistent, probably, for probably 2 or 3 years now. Castleford as a team have been, inconsistent, and what we're striving for is a little bit more consistency in performance and just showing a little bit more fight than we did against Warrington. That's the most disappointing thing. There was a period there where, first 10 minutes, we're 6-0 down and you feel as though you're still in that fight. And then, an unforced error from Greg Eden, and then they score back-to-back tries and 18 points on the board. And it felt as though the players' confidence was just drained away in that moment. So we need to be better and we need to show more resilience and more fight. And that's what I'm expecting to see on Saturday against Catalan.
Just lastly for me, Andy, do you feel like that result last week has harmed your chances?
Yeah, it's got to, hasn't it? The manner of the performance wasn't good. You're playing at home in front of a crowd which has turned up, paid good hard-earned money, and they didn't see what they expect to see, which is that effort and that spirit and that desire. Albeit we got it the week before against Leeds, and everyone's saying how wonderful it was and fantastic. And they saw the passion from myself in the stands and the passion from the players on the pitch. But good players do it week in, week out, and they've got to consistent to deliver. The challenge for us as a group is we were able to hit those, marks against Warrington. And what we've got to do, we've got to hit those marks against Catalan. We're striving for consistency. I want the players to be better. I want them to show more fight, and the characteristics of a Castleford team over the course of a long history is, hard working, resilient, tough, compete hard, a real togetherness. And we've got to show that, on a weekly basis. And there's only 17 blokes who take the field who can, inspire the supporters by their performance. So that's what they've been told this week. And I'm hoping to see a much improved performance on Saturday.
Yeah, good, thanks. Is there an update on Liam Watts?
Yeah, he's got an AC joint. He's going for a scan as we speak. So hopefully we'll get good news from that. But a bad one can be, 6 to 8, and a steady one can be, a 2 to 3. So, AC joint, shoulder issue. So hopefully we'll get positive news from that in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, fingers crossed. What about Nathan? I think he came off. Was it an eye socket problem?
Yeah, it's a strange one with Nathan Massey. He was due to go back on for Albert Vette in that second half. Obviously, Nathan's got a good engine and can play good minutes, so wanted to try and get him to, do the first 25, and then Albert either side of half time, to be impactful and give us some big carries. And then literally just as it was coming up to that 15-minute mark in the second half, where, get Massey warmed up, ready to go. We got the information that he's blown his nose, and it looked like he's popped his eye socket. So that was like a devastating blow, because it meant we had, 2 subs with, 15 minutes to go, and then we ended up with only 1 fit body with 25 minutes to go against, obviously, a Warrington team who were, full of momentum. So in a strange sort of way, we faced some adversity in that game, albeit, 38 points to 0, isn't great, but there was some adversity during the course of the game which we were faced with. So, that was tough, but it looks like he's going to be available for selection as Massey. He's not fractured his eye socket. Basically, some small bone in your nose was fractured, and obviously when he's blown, it's just caused the blowhole, so to speak, to cause him a problem in his eye. So it's more of a nasal fracture rather than an eye socket fracture. So we got some good news on Tuesday from his scan result. But these rugby players, the tough men, and Massey's obviously one of the tough guys, and he's got the all clear from the doctor and said, I want to be available for selection, which is credit to him.
Yeah, I was just about to say that sounds like a painful one. So he's fighting through the pain to be available.
Yeah, he's had a little bit bruise in the eye and that, but he went to see the specialist on Tuesday. They just said, it's a small fracture in the nose, so you're able to play with it. The doctors have given him the all clear, so he's obviously had only a 25-minute spell on the pitch last week, so he should be fresh, and hopefully we'll see that freshness when he plays against Catalan.
And I think you mentioned to JD, I think you mentioned your completion rate is something that you want to target.
Yeah, we're top of the errors. We're top of the errors. We've got to be, looking to get around about that 80% mark. That's what all teams are looking for. And it's a strange one. If you don't get that, you don't give yourself a chance to compete at Super League level. So we need to make sure that we get those numbers first and foremost. And if we're on the back of, an 80% completion rate and we've still not scored points, then, we can really identify the areas in terms of our execution, which needs work and needs assessment. But when you're completing around about that 63% mark, which we did against Warrington, you just don't give yourself a chance. So, we need to try and build our game on, better numbers with regards to completion rates and, field position, etc. And then we can, really start to unpick, areas of improvement, because at the minute, we just aren't giving ourselves a chance to compete in the game.
How's Kane Rob getting on?
Yeah, he's okay. Getting a fairly tough return to play. Training, still in the pot, so he's still a couple of weeks away yet. We've missed obviously his energy and his speed around the dummy half, and the stuff that he does off the ball defensively, has been a miss to us. So yeah, he's a couple of weeks away yet.
I know. Have you been looking, in the transfer market or loan market or for replacement for Jake Mamel?
Yeah, we've been looking, but it's not a great market at the moment. there's all teams are desperate to keep hold of the squads that they've inherited and the squads that they've built over the course of obviously their off seasons. It's tough. We've always obviously taking calls and making sure that we're striking if a player becomes available. Like I say, there's not much out there at the minute, and everyone's sort of like looking after their own clubs, which they're all entitled to do so.
And I don't know if you saw on social media, but Grant Millington said he'd be attending the Wakefield game with a beer in one hand and his boots in the other. Is that something that you could consider at all?
Oh, I won't mind Milo in his heyday, yeah. Fantastic player is Milo. Player that I had a huge amount of respect for. He always used to feature heavily on previews. Very, very tough, durable, skillful, front rower, and served this club with great distinction. Probably goes down as one of Castleford's best overseas signings. So yeah, he's a very, very good player. I won't mind getting his number off him because he's someone who I won't mind bringing into the group, maybe leading into that Wakefield game with some words of inspiration. It's something that I'll probably look to do over the course of next couple of days, I should think.
What sort of opposition team do you expect this week? They've got a few blokes who are due back from injury. Have you got any mail? And secondly, what do you think of the comp this year? Is it more competitive? Is it a higher standard, or is it? I'll ask both those questions in one, and that's my only question.
With regards to Catalan, watched the game against Leeds. I thought it was a great contest between Leeds and Catalan. On Channel 4, and I've read some reports that viewing figures were excellent. I thought it showcased, a really, really good competitive game between two equally matched teams. I've been told that Navarrete, he's not going to play. Sorry, not Navarrete. Goudemond and Garcia won't play because of HIA. And then Tyrone Main obviously looked as though he picked up a nasty ankle injury. So, I was buzzing when I read that initial report, and then you scroll down a little bit further and it looks like Takiyaho, Tompkins and Navarrete are coming back. So they've got some depth and some quality there at Catalan. So, they're a very, very good team. So, I'm expecting, the best version of Catalan. They've got some decent, young French players. I'm really impressed with Laguerre, the centre. He's been, a good player for them over the last couple of years. So, they've got some good players. With regard to the competition, it is equally matched. I think, teams from, bottom to top can take points off one another. I think it's quite a compressed competition, albeit we're second bottom with only 2 points. I think there's 4 teams on 4 points, and one of those obviously is Huddersfield, albeit they've obviously played 1 game less, but it is a fairly condensed competition, and that bodes well for obviously Super League.